The Royals have filled their hitting coach roles. What do we think of those hires? We're going to talk about it next on Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are tuned in to another edition of Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That is at JOHNYJ_15. And you can listen to us on wherever you download your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. And we are so proud to announce that Locked On is now the #1 sports podcasting network in the world. So thank you so much for continuing to listen each and every day. And you can count on us doing that even throughout the off season. As things begin to gear up, we'll have new content every single day. Before we get started, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. I am very fortunate that the Royals filled their final hitting coach role this afternoon because I really didn't get the opportunity last week to talk about the hiring of Connor Dawson, him coming over from Milwaukee. He's a local guy, went to school in this area, and I really wanted to take a segment or two to dive into the hiring of Dawson. And we had mentioned that David Leske had broken that news, was the first one to bring up his name. And then I saw earlier this afternoon that he was rather surprised that it was Thames that the Royals decided to hire because he had somebody that he was teasing, I believe, yesterday that he thought was likely going to be getting the role. So we'll find out who that name was in the coming days, I'm sure. But now we know that the Royals coaching staff really only has one more role to fill up unless they were to add an additional coach or two just to have. But we know that Zach Bove's role still needs to be replaced. But as for the hitting coaches, they've now replaced Joe Dillon and they replaced Keone DeRen with Connor Dawson and Marcus Thames, who spent last year with the White Sox and the year before that. Let's start off, though, with Dawson. Dawson is 32 years old. He was a part of the Brewers organization. And in reading through Brewers social media, asking a few people that do follow the Brewers, he was seen in a very good light. He was considered to be somebody that really could relate to the younger players, was very analytical, and it helped some of those guys with their day-to-day work. And that's what it comes down to now when you evaluate, multiple coaches for one unit of the team. Right? The Royals have 3 pitching coaches. They have 3 hitting coaches. It's not the same anymore as having one hitting coach, one pitching coach, one bullpen coach, one bench coach. You've got multiple guys that work with these players, that develop these players. And I honestly love the fact the Royals went to someone like Milwaukee to pry away a guy that probably has an elevated role in coming to Kansas City. The Brewers are not the Royals. They are not a carbon copy of the Royals. But they are a ball club that I feel you could try to emulate. There is nothing that Milwaukee does payroll-wise that is, just not in the same realm for the Royals. Like, they don't overspend on numerous players. They don't buy all their talent. They have to rely on developing their players. They have to get the most out of the bottom of their order. They have to elevate their stars and turn them into superstars. And other than Christian Yelich in that lineup, they didn't go out there and just handpick whoever they wanted to get. And even in that deal years ago to acquire Christian Yelich, they had to give up a chunk of their prospects to Miami to bring him in. Now, they paid big money for Lorenzo Cain at the time, but over the last couple of years, they have just gotten the most out of the guys they've drafted and developed. And for the Royals, you're always going to be that team that maybe isn't afraid to spend money, but you're never going to spend that top dollar. As we've said multiple times, they're not going to be in the hunt for Kyle Tucker. They're not going out there and giving those free agents, $35, $40 million deals per year. They're going to have to rely on upgrading where they can, but getting the most out of guys on the team that maybe underachieved the year before. And that's why I believe it's a good step for Connor Dawson and his career, being only 32, but now can almost be one of those faces in working with Jack Caglione and Carter Jensen and getting the most out of those younger guys on the team. So with Dawson, to have someone from a club like that, from an organization like that, I enjoy the approach by J.J. Piccolo there. I feel that when they got together and they thought about certain candidates for this job, Connor Dawson makes a lot of sense in a variety of ways. Younger, analytical, can work with these guys and brings in a breath of fresh air, brings in a different mindset just because he's coming from a different organization. I'm glad that they decided to go outside the organization to find these two hires because you want to hear what other people have to think. You want different experience. And Keone Duren and Alex Zumwalt and Joe Dillon combined, they didn't have a ton of experience being hitting coaches at the big league level. Now, Connor Dawson is going to be working with guys that are even older than him. I mean, he's younger than Salvador Perez. Now, he's older than a large majority of this lineup, but it's crazy to think about. They're going to be having a coach on this staff that is working with guys who are older than them. That kind of seems to be the direction that baseball is heading in, whether it be coaches or it be scouts. You bring in the younger mind and the guy who is very close to the game on the field, but also not far removed from it. You get that different approach, whereas baseball for so many years, it was you got the 70-year-old manager, you got the 60-year-old pitching coach. The younger approach to building your staff, it goes a long way in being relatable to your team and to your players. Now, as for Marcus Thames, who was hired today by the Royals, there's more pushback I could tell on social media because of where he had been coming from, which was the Chicago White Sox. He was let go at the end of the 2025 season. He was with the Angels before that. And then his real claim to fame was being a hitting coach for the Yankees from 2018 to 2021. And they had some pretty good years offensively. Really only the last year, 2021, did they take a little bit of dip in terms of the OPS department. That was what I was using to measure the overall production of Thames's offense there. And we can understand, as I just said with Connor Dawson, he's coming from an organization that relies on developing young talent and getting the most out of the bottom players in that order. Whereas Thames, when he was a great hitting coach and he had spent time in the minor leagues for the Yankees as well, he was a former Yankee himself. He was able to put up good numbers, but we know the Yankees can get a lot of that talent, right? How much credit goes to a hitting coach when you have an abundance of players that you're signing in free agency? They are 5 to 10 year vets, and they're already established as stars in that game. Some people want to give no credit whatsoever, and some people still do give some form of credit to those hitting coaches. But Thames really shined. I would say if you look at his workload, he shined in New York, got the opportunity with the Angels, got the opportunity with the Marlins, and it never really panned out. Also the White Sox as well. But the reason I didn't want to highlight them too much is not because it was his previous stint, but I'll leave it up to you to answer this for yourself. Was his inability to coach up these hitters about him and not getting the best out of those guys, or was it more of a talent thing? Because you look at the roster the last 2 years in Chicago, there wasn't a lot of push from that front office to build a winning ball club. Pitching side of things, different story for the White Sox. But offensively, there weren't too many guys in that group that I thought really belonged on a big league diamond. I'm not trying to make excuses for Thames, but I do feel that coming to Kansas City, you're dealing with better talent. You're dealing with a star player, and it's also a different role, right? So that's why I want to wait and see and actually probably talk to these guys at some point of whose responsibilities, fall where, right? What are these guys doing on a day-to-day basis, right? Is Alex Zumwalt controlling everything and these guys are dealing with different parts of the offense? Are they working with certain players? Because the way I can see it right now is Connor Dawson is the analytical side of things. He's the younger guy. He's really going to look at those advanced metrics and those little numbers here and there. He's going to look at the data. Not saying Zumwalt wouldn't or Marcus Thames wouldn't, but feels like he was brought in to shine in that regard. Whereas Thames, he's more of an established veteran presence for the hitting department thing. I mean, we are so soon to forget Alex Zumwalt's not been a hitting coach for an extended period of time, whereas Thames has done it at 4 different stops. And not all of them have been successful, but you bring in more of a seasoned vet who knows how to work with certain guys and maybe has the better approach to the mental side of things. When you're going through slumps, when you're dealing with this, here's how we told some of our better players to work out of it. Here's what we did here. Here's what we did here. Here's what didn't work when I was at this place. You have an abundance of knowledge here in all 3 phases. And I feel that the Royals did their due diligence in trying to find the right fit for this specific team, right? Because I know the easy thing for us to all do is say, well, go get somebody from a great offense, right? Go find the best hitting coach for the best offense in the league. Sometimes it's about finding who works best with your roster, with your style of play, while also trying to upgrade the team in different areas. So it's more of a wait and see game with Connor Dawson and Marcus Thames. I want to see who this team brings in, whether it be trade or free agency, before we can really get a good feel on how good this offense can be. But those are the 2 hires the Royals made over the last week. That should fill out their hitting side of things, but they still have one more role to fill that Zach Bove left in leaving for Chicago. Do you like these hires that the Royals made over the last week? Let us know in the YouTube comments below. When we come back, another thing I didn't have a chance to talk about over the weekend was Bobby Witt Jr. winning the Platinum Glove Award, his first for the American League, which if you didn't know that, he's the best defender of anybody in the American League, regardless of what position they played. We'll dive into that honor next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find us on wherever you listen to your podcast. And want to tell you that we are now the #1 sports podcast network in the world. So thank you for listening to Locked On each and every day. Want to tell you that one of our sponsors of the episode is FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. For my pick, I'm going to take both running backs in Monday Night Football tonight, Packers and Eagles, over on rushing yards for Josh Jacobs, over on rushing yards for Saquon Barkley. I will also take both of them to find the end zone in this game. The award I did want to spend a little bit more time on before our final segment was Bobby Witt Jr. bringing home yet another award this offseason. He was a Silver Slugger winner. That was announced over the weekend. He now wins the Platinum Glove Award to add with the Gold Glove, which you can't be a Platinum Glove winner unless you win the Gold Glove Award. And now that makes it #1 in his career to be a Platinum Glove winner. This really shouldn't have been too much of a surprise. There are arguments to be made in both leagues. Bobby Witt Jr. was up against, Cedar Rafaela, who I know a lot of Red Sox fans are upset that he didn't get that honor. But this award is measured by not only defensive metrics, but a fan vote. And Bobby Witt Jr. is going to have a really good chance over the course of his career to win a bunch of these. We saw Nolan Arenado dominated on the National League for a number of years. Yadi Molina did it as well. Cal Raleigh won it last year, though he wasn't even a Gold Glove finalist in 2025. We had, I believe, Manny Machado win it on the American League side one of the years. There's somebody I'm leaving out, too, that really dominated for a couple of years. I know Gordo won it in 2014 and 2020. Adrian Beltre won it a couple of years. So there have been these multiple-time winners that were able to earn this honor. And it is a tremendous honor, far better than winning a Gold Glove. I know Gold Glove has that nice ring to it. It rolls off the tongue easily. But a Platinum Glove winner really shows how great you are defensively. There's no flukes when it comes to a Platinum Glove winner. Now, maybe you're a Cubs fan and you're upset that Pete Crow Armstrong didn't get the Platinum Glove Award. Instead, it was Fernando Tatis Jr., which I've got my thoughts on that to begin with. I thought Patrick Bailey, being one of the best defenders in both leagues, really deserved more praise than he got. Unfortunately, for some of those players, the fan voting does heavily impact this vote as well. So you got to be a good defender. There's never been a Platinum Glove winner that would just not be a good defender. We've seen Gold Glove finalists be average to maybe slightly above average defenders, but they're not Gold Glove finalists. Like, when you really break it down, they shouldn't be in the top 3. But when it comes to a Platinum Glove winner, these are the best of the best, right? These are going to be guys that have earned the right to get this award, but they're also popular. And so that's why, when asked a question earlier today, do you feel that he can win multiple? Well, that's easy, right? I do feel that he can win a ton of these Platinum Glove awards, and it will only add to that trophy case, or trophy room, I should say, throughout his career. I mean, he's going to have multiple Silver Slugger awards. He's going to have multiple Gold Glove awards. I still, feel that he is going to be a multiple-time MVP. It's different coming from me, though, being a Locked On Royals host and talking about this team every single day. Of course, I'm going to say that he's going to win multiple MVP awards. But Platinum Glove is where I believe he can separate himself, and he's so beloved by the majority of baseball. In fact, I would say all of baseball. And he's somebody, if we're being honest, that has been snubbed before by fan voting. He is yet to start in an all-star game, and though you can make the case that Gunnar Henderson and Jacob Wilson had better first halves that led them into the all-star game, the fan voting could have poured in and gotten Bobby Witt Jr. to start one of those 2 games. And then we saw in the second half, in both of those years, he was much better than his counterpart there, the guy that beat him out to start in the all-star game. So I really don't have much sympathy for those fans that had their player not win the Platinum Glove Award, because Bobby Witt Jr. and Royals fans have gone through it before. So back to that point of winning multiple of these, right, to have 2 or 3 Platinum Glove Awards, you have somebody that has the defensive metrics, right? For a shortstop, he's incredible, with outs above average. You also measure it a little bit differently with defensive runs saved. I know for Red Sox fans, Cedar Rafaela had 20 plus, I believe, and Bobby Witt Jr. only had 3. But it's different with an outfielder or a third baseman compared to a shortstop. I mean, Mason Wynn, who's elite defensively, didn't have that many defensive runs saved. There's another shortstop I'm blanking on, too, that didn't have a very high defensive run save total. But the outs above average, that's how I measure those shortstops, or UZR. The only thing you really don't use to measure it is fielding percentage, right? Fielding percentage is not really an important stat anymore, even though, it matters. You want to have an 1,000 fielding percentage, but I want to know about the range. I want to know about the arm. How many runs are you saving? How many outs above average are you getting on a game-by-game basis? And Bobby Witt Jr. is just so unbelievably electric at that position. And for the fan voting side of things, if you are watching Bobby Witt Jr., you get the routine plays, or it just is so smooth and effortless. And then you got the above average plays, the ones that pop, the ones that show up on MLB Network, the ones that show up on ESPN. That matters in fan voting. If you are an elite defender that is not just good metrics-wise, not just the eye test, but then you do pass the eye test of making these ridiculous throws and having the diving plays in the hole and the glove flips up the middle, the barehanded throws coming in, you are going to get the fan vote. You are going to get people, just drooling over your highlights, which that's why I believe Bobby Witt Jr. is going to separate himself as that type of superstar. It is nothing against Cedar Rafaela, because he is an elite defender by every metric. I believe that he is one of the better young players in the game. But for an average baseball fan, which never really happened in Kansas City for one of their players, if you're an average baseball fan and you are looking at the best, if you were given a handful of players to vote from, the finalist, if you will, a lot of people are going to vote for Bobby Witt Jr. because he's not just a great defender. He's an MVP caliber player, and I'm not sure that Cedar Rafaela can ever get to that part. Maybe he can, maybe I'm wrong, and if I am, then I can gladly admit it. But for right now, Bobby Witt Jr. is more of that household name than Cedar Rafaela. Unfortunately for Rafaela, he's on a team that's loaded with multiple young stars on that team. We hear about, Roman Anthony, right? Roman Anthony's somebody that gets more talk, gets more coverage than Rafaela does. I mean, he was great for that team next to Jaron Duran, and he was great for that team alongside Wilyer Abreu and that pitching staff, and they're bringing up guys left and right. It's a young, fun team, but when there's a bunch of them, you don't stand out as easily to the fans that are voting. Whereas Bobby Witt Jr., he's the first name you think about now for fans watching Royals games, not just diehard Royals fans. I'm talking baseball fans in general. For years, it was Salvador Perez. Now it's Bobby Witt Jr., hence why I believe at the end of the day, he got more fan votes. And then you compare that to all the defensive metrics that he absolutely dominated them. Do you believe Bobby Witt Jr. deserved to be that Platinum Glove winner? I feel I know the answer for a lot of you, but definitely let us know in the YouTube comments below. When we come back, the GM meetings are underway, and the Royals already made a trade earlier this afternoon. We'll talk about that next on Locked On Royals. You are tuning in to Locked On Royals in the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find us on wherever you download your podcast. Want to tell you about the title sponsor in Gametime. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there is nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's so incredibly frustrating. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. Those terms apply, so again, use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go download Gametime today. The GM meetings are underway, which means we might get some more activity on the free agent front, on the trade front. Even if there's no trades that are completed, we know that these GMs are going to be laying the groundwork. I believe that it's in Vegas this year, so as I saw some of the reporters joking about earlier today, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and there are going to be trades that are leaked, but there will be discussions that are had that we don't hear about for another month or maybe 2 months. Whenever a deal would be completed, it's like, oh, well, that's where it stems back to, right? The GM meetings, when they got together and they discussed maybe players in a trade, they were thinking about discussing a free agent or two. You can point back to the GM meetings over and over and over again. And I would say that for the Royals, this will be a very important GM meeting for JJ Picollo, because there's going to be some teams that walk into the GM meetings knowingly as sellers, right? They are going to be teams looking to move some pieces, and it's not going to be just those teams that are bad, that are looking to rebuild. It'll be some teams that are in the in-between, if you will. They're in purgatory. They know they're not a bottom barrel team, but they know they are not close enough to being the top dog in that division. I mean, I saw today in a report by Bob Nightingale, the Diamondbacks are motivated to move Ketel Marte, who we've talked about before in this offseason podcast list, right? The Ketel Marte on a team that's not bad. They're not bottom of the barrel, but they're also not as good as the Padres or the Dodgers. And depending on what the Giants do, they may not be as good as the Giants going into 2026. But with as many guys that have been discussed and with the way the free agent market looks, this can be a GM meeting / winter meetings in a couple of weeks that the Royals can jump on it. They can jump on the trade market, get involved in these discussions, which I have no doubt they will be, and try to strike up some deals that can better your team before the calendar even flips into 2026. So with those underway, you're going to see some more moves being made. And the Royals already made one earlier this afternoon in acquiring Cameron Meisner from the Tampa Bay Rays in exchange for a player to be named later or cash considerations. He was DFA'd, I think, a week ago. So this is a move that, you could make really at any time. And it's a fine move. I saw people, overreacting to his slash line, his numbers that he's produced at the big league level. Do not get it twisted in any way, shape, or form. This is not a move where JJ Picollo in the front office said, oh, we got to get him on this team and we feel he's going to bounce back and he's going to be playing in our lineup every other night. No, this is one of many depth moves every team makes in the offseason, and most notably during the GM meetings or during the winter meetings. Now, Cameron Meisner's a local guy, kind of. He was drafted by the Royals out of high school in 2016. I believe he went to high school in Missouri as well, played college ball for Mizzou. And I thought at the time of when he was drafted, which was 2020, I guess it would have been, that he was somebody that made a lot of sense for the Royals. A big, toolsy outfielder, had that raw power, had the potential, had the local ties playing at Mizzou, but the Royals decided to go in a different direction. For the Rays, it just never really worked out. He did make the opening day roster last year due to Richie Palacios' injury. So he had an incredibly good first month of the year in his absence. Kind of was one of those guys that just burst onto the scene and was more of an age prospect, but made the most out of that opportunity in the first month of the year. I mean, he hit .320, had 11 extra base hits, drove in 11 guys. I mean, there was a lot to like about Cameron Meisner's first month of 2025. Then he hit 138 in May. He hit under 200 in June, and that was it for him in Tampa Bay. He never had a chance to compete with them after that. So in him being DFA'd, it's not that the Royals looked at him and said, well, we know that his March and April can be replicated over and over again in Kansas City, and we can get the most out of him. Yes, I'm sure there's some optimism there, but this is all about depth for positions. And these minor moves, the minor league deals, it's all about depth. He will be there, I'm guessing, in spring training. I doubt he will be on the 40-man roster, but the Royals made this move to ensure that they've got depth in Omaha if need be. And you want to have an abundance of outfielders. You want to have that competition going into spring training, and you don't need to be up in arms about a deal like this. This is a deal that, in my mind, the first thing that popped up was, let's find somebody to replace Joey Wiemer, which they already had to at the end of last season because he was DFA'd. But Joey Wiemer was somebody, younger prospect, used to be a top guy in that system, big body, speed, big arm, just never panned out in Milwaukee. Cameron Meisner's kind of the same thing. I'd imagine he'll be stashed in Omaha to begin the year, and we'll see how he does there. But they're going to have to replace some outfielders that are now either free agents or just no longer with the team. So that's what this move screamed to me. And you get the local ties there. I mean, they signed Connor Kaiser as well, who had played high school ball not far from Kauffman Stadium. He played for Blue Valley West, I believe it was. So you've got two local kids that are coming in over the last week or so. These are all depth moves. There is nothing to be freaked out about. Every team makes these moves, and every team makes an abundance of them. So if you thought that this was a move to, pencil in the fourth outfielder of the team, you would just be mistaken. I got nothing from this deal other than you want to have some extra depth going into spring training, and you want to see if, whatever he did in March and April can be tapped into again in Kansas City. And you've got somebody with upside. I mean, he was a compensatory pick in the first round, I believe. So he had first round to second round potential written all over him. He's 6'4", 220, big arm, has a little bit of the inside out swing, has some raw power. You can work with that and also acknowledge that he's going to be 28 in January. He's not some 23, 24-year-old kid that has barely even scratched the surface. It's very possible this is who he is. It's very possible he never has one at bat in Kansas City. But you make these moves because they don't cost anything. Yes, you might trade some cash or a player to be named later, but you need depth in Omaha. And you want to have guys that, who knows, maybe could get really hot in Omaha and then find an opportunity in Kansas City. I mean, I even think about it this way, where if you're the Royals and you approach a situation like they had last year, now fingers crossed they don't. But remember when John Rave was tearing it up in Omaha and he got the opportunity, and then for about a week or two, he played outside of his mind and won the Royals a couple of games? I mean, could you imagine in July or August if the Royals needed an extra outfielder and Cameron Meisner, I get this is playing an absurd hypothetical, but he were to come up and hit 320, have 11 extra base hits and drive in 11 just for 1 month, and then he's terrible for the rest of the time, that could win you a chunk of games that could get you into the postseason. Now, that's the best case scenario for what I just brought up, but that's why you have the depth there. It doesn't cost you anything. You've got a little bit of big league experience, and you've got somebody that might be fun to work with. You got the 6'4", 220 frame, big arm in the outfield, can play all 3 outfield spots. I got no issue with it, and if you are concerned about it or you didn't like it, unfortunately, there are going to be many moves like this in the offseason where the Royals just tweeted out, and that's the end of that. But this will be one of many, as all teams do in the offseason, those little moves of trading cash for a player to be named later for a guy that was DFA'd or a guy that might be blocked somewhere in another organization. Well, that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every day. For your second, find the all-night Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, until a World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to dive a little bit more into the GM meetings and what the Royals could do with some other teams out there looking to shop. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.